Hello, everyone, and good evening. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I know it's kind of a hectic time of the semester, so I really appreciate you taking the time to be here for this wonderful event with Dr. Chung. Please make sure to grab some snacks. We'll also have some time at the end of the event, a little reception outside, so you can grab some more snacks and potentially take some home with you. Just to introduce myself, my name is Rachel. I'm a senior here at USD and a communication studies major. And I am one of the co-chairs of this last lecture series committee. So once again, thank you so much for being here tonight, whether you are physically in this room or connecting virtually. We do have quite a few folks online, but I would like to start off with a land acknowledgement. So as we gather for this meeting, let us take a moment to reflect on the meaning of place. And in doing so, recognize that the land which University of San Diego occupies is part of the traditional and unceded territory of the Kumeyaay Nation. We pay respect to the citizens of the Kumeyaay Nation, both past and present, and their continuing relationship with their ancestral lands. It is important to learn about the longstanding history that has brought us to reside on this land. I am so excited and honored to be with all of you today, and we will continue with a little bit of explanation about what mortarboard is, and also introduce our speaker for tonight. So with that being said, I will pass it to Maya, who is the president of Mortarboard.
Hello, everybody. So I just like to give a little bit of background as to what Mortarboard is. So Mortarboard is a national honor society that recognizes college seniors for distinguished achievement in scholarship, leadership, and service. Mortarboard began in 1918 as the first national organization honoring senior college women. It was open to men in 1975, retaining as part of its purpose to promote and advance the status of women. Mortarboard members have a lifetime commitment to the ideals of Mortarboard: scholarship, leadership, and service. The USD Mortarboard chapter, the Judy Lewis Logue Alcala chapter, was formed in October 2000 and renamed in October 2020 in honor of its founder, Judy Lewis Logue. The National Mortarboard Leadership awarded our chapter the Ruth Weimer Mount Award for Chapter Excellence this year, 2021, and in 2006 for the best mortarboard chapter in the country. Each year between those two, our chapter has also been recognized as one of the top chapters. Mortarboard began hosting the last lecture series at USD in the fall of 2010. The series is inspired by Dr. Randy Pausch's last lecture at Carnegie Mellon on the topic of achieving your childhood dreams. Dr. Pausch delivered this lecture while terminally ill. Thankfully, our speaker is healthy. The goal of our last lecture series is to provide, thankfully, yeah. The goal of our last lecture series is to provide an opportunity for a distinguished faculty member to consider what they would say when giving a lecture as if they were last. Now I want to hand it over to Kobe, who will introduce you all to this year's lecturer, Dr. Leeva Chung from the Communication Studies Department.
Dr. Chung, aka Chung, has been a faculty member in the Communication Studies Department since September 1st, 1998. Born and raised in San Francisco, one fun fact is she attended 4 different elementary public schools. She completed her undergraduate degree at San Francisco State with a major in speech communication and minor in ethnic studies, her master's in speech communication at Cal State Fullerton, and her PhD at the University of Oklahoma. Some random facts about Dr. Chung are during the 1989 earthquake, she was in the basement at San Francisco State studying for the GRE, and she was living in LA during the riots and as in class in Norman, Oklahoma City when the OKC bombing happened. In the communication department, Chung teaches a variety of courses such as, but not limited to, intercultural, interpersonal, small group, human communication theory, interviewing and negotiating, and global teams. In addition, she has been an affiliate faculty member with ethnic studies and taught and coordinated study abroad courses for USD in 5 different countries. Chung has developed a unique and innovative style of teaching that has been recognized with numerous awards on campus. The unique style of teaching is what she calls organized chaos, which is a process of moving students from theory to the lived experience with the help of amazing alumni who dedicate their time, experience, and passion to students in class. In the community, Chung is one of the founding members of the San Diego Asian Film Festival, debuting at USD in 2000. December 16th, 2016 is the Leeva Chung, December 16th of every year is the Leeva Chung Day, awarded by the city of San Diego for her collaborative work with students, the city, and the community on pure water. For 20 years, her research has focused on the intersection of identity development, pop culture, and intercultural communication. She has recently published a third edition of a popular intercultural textbook, Understanding Intercultural Communication with Dr. Stella Ting Toomey, as well as contributed to many other book chapters and research articles. Dr. Chung has delivered keynote speeches and conducted a variety of workshops for corporations, universities, and conferences around the US. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Dr. Chung, and after she gives her talk, we will have a Q&A. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Chung.
Thank you. First, I have to thank your fearless leader, Dr. Myers. Where is she? Thank you for inviting me. To the mortar board for actually doing this. I didn't think you could possibly do this. Me, okay. And also to Rachel, to Maya, thank you, to Catherine, Christopher, Kobe, and Capri. Where are you? She's back there. Gave me this lovely light. Mahalo. I want to thank all of you for coming out to a time when you could be doing other things like sleeping and studying and eating, but you came here to listen to my last lecture, supposed. Right. But I also want to thank the people on Zoom for zooming in as well. The 23 years that I've spent here have been pretty amazing. They've been up and down. They've been good and bad. But for this, I thank you. So I started with a playlist about 3 weeks ago when I was asked by Rachel and the committee to give a title. And me being me, I changed it to Untitled. Freaking half of the people out, Capri, when everything should have a set pattern, should have a title, and I figured that was just too much. So take me on this journey with you as I give my last lecture that I've changed multiple times, and don't be afraid or alarmed if I should do so right now, which I probably will. Okay, so. No, it's, don't worry, I got this. All right, I've got to start by today. Today is December 7th, the day of infamy. But this is also a pretty spectacular day for myself as well. People know me as Chung, people know me as Dr. Chung, but not too many people know me as Leeva. And we talked about the house as a land and your home is where your heart is, but I don't necessarily discuss Leeva. So for today, I'm going to give you just a peek. I'm that person who's like a house on that street that's kind of awkward and weird. You pass by it, you've heard about it, you want to take a peek, but you're kind of like, don't think so, right? Little bit sketch, okay? But let me give you a sense of who I am just for a little bit, so at least you can acknowledge a context of why I enjoy teaching so much. And that is actually my life. But not September, but 2018, my father at the time when he was alive asked my other sister and I to go to Pearl Harbor. Now we had gone to Hawaii multiple times because my grandfather in this picture actually was born in Hawaii, went back to China and found his wife who's here, my grandmother, May, random. His name is Sun, her name is May, and my dad's name was Day. You make that kind of connection, right? Okay, so during Pearl Harbor, according to my dad, he said, I want you to come and enjoy Pearl Harbor for the reason that if he had not ran from the gunfire, you would not be standing here and survived. He was in the middle with two other cooks because he actually cooked at Pearl Harbor on the ships and ran when the gunfire started. And in the middle was him. Had he been on the left or had he been on the right, he would have passed. So I want to acknowledge the fact that I wouldn't be standing here if my grandfather did not survived. But here's the crazy thing is that was 2018. And that was a time when my sister and I were going, what the Dad? Like you had many years to tell us the story, but yet you didn't. Why? And so that's part of this untitled kind of lecture I want to give you. That culture is both a prism and a prison. Culture expands us, it gives us hope, It gives us new ways of thinking. But at the same time, it contracts, right? That it doesn't allow us to see past what we think is important to us or what we've been raised with. So these values that are associated with culture are based on what we are inherently taught. Maybe we don't know about it, but what we subscribe to when we continue to do so. But until you take a look at yourself and what is around you, it can become an amazing prism. And that juxtaposition of that balance of that force that is prism and prison, to me, is a lot like our life. And so my life is about my two grandmothers. The one on the left is my mother's mother. The one on the right is my dad's mother. You saw the picture of her when she was 16. She's the product of the Exclusion Act. She never saw her husband until the Exclusion Act was lifted in 1946, and 2 years later when she went to Hawaii, he had already remarried. So there's a lot of sadness and suffering. But at the same time, my grandmother on the left, who was also immigrated through Australia, random fact, I have a redheaded cousin in Australia, it's a side note. She immigrated through Australia into Hawaii, arranged as well, but she was the smartest woman in her village, and she had to marry. And so if you think about it, in life, you're given a set of constraints. And so what are you going to do to make it work? And so when I think about my two grandmothers and what they suffered through, or what they actually survived through, it gives me kind of the hope and aspiration when times seem really shitty for me. So here's my mother, who was 16 at the time when she met my dad, who was 24. I'm not judging, but that age difference is not appropriate at this time, okay? But back in the day, it was fine. The only thing they had in common, according to my dad's cousin, was that they were both beautiful and into art, the art of beauty. My mother was an aspiring singer, and my father was actually a painter. And so the two of them got together, and they had the three of us. Gitwa Kawa Laiwa, Giva, Gava, and Leeva, or as my beloved friends in Hawaii would say, get 'em, got 'em, leave 'em. It's true, actually, we are our namesakes. So growing up in San Francisco at a time when it was kind of chaotic, when my mom was a singer and my father was an aspiring painter who got rejected because of the discriminatory laws at the time in San Francisco, our childhood was actually kind of crazy. On Fridays and Saturdays, we would sit in basements in Chinatown, and it would be something like this. Okay, beautiful, right? Not really. Not at 2 in the morning when 3 kids are on a couch in a smoky-filled basement while my dad is playing Chinese instruments and my mom is singing. 3 kids, like within 2 years apart, children listening to this, but it's etched in my memory. But then the juxtaposition of these classical Chinese songs with this at 6 in the morning, 6 in the morning. Also gorgeous, but not at 6 in the morning when you're living in a really poor part of town, listening to scales. But these two contrasting music styles really did play a key role in how I look at life. That kind of centrifugal force of balance. Because unlike other typical Chinese immigrant families and children of an immigrant family, my dad and mom decided to divorce. Actually, my mom left my dad. She pieced out at that time. And we were poor. My dad was a struggling artist, but now he's working for Caltrans. Caltrash, he said. And my mother was like, I want to sing and I want to go to Wisconsin, leaving him at this age. My mom divorced my father at the age of 30. So when I wrap that around my head, I think, that's kind of empowering for a woman to piece out with 3 children, leaving it with my dad for just a bit, which devastated my father. And it left a mark on all of us, my sisters and I, but it also gave us a sense of strength as well. Because I note it as more of a dialectical tension, as in the struggle or the complementary forces that are combined together. You can call it yin yang, but for my life and for what I saw is like, how can these 2 opposing forces struggle with and struggle against each other, but yet give it a sense of identity and give it a sense of cohesion balance with these complementary with an E force. So to stay true to what I said to you I was going to do was to give you a playlist. This song to me represents that tension.
Don't it seem we go through life going up and down, seeing the things that turn you on, turn you around, always hurting each other. If it ain't one thing, it's another. When the world is down on you, love's somewhere around. I want you to know and think, oh yeah, sunshine. And then talk to me right now, y'all. And think, oh, I like sunshine.
Anybody know who that is? That's how you know you feel old. As my last lecture, that is actually Maze. And so the whole notion of joy and pain is like sunshine and rain, but those forces come together that you can actually balance them together and it makes sense. And that's how I see life. That's how I see culture, both as a prison and a prism. And so I can tell you, like my name, I loved my name in Chinese, Qing Lai Wa, right? I always used to think my name, my dad, I just found this today too. The watercolor paintings my dad did, I thought my name was Beautiful Flower. For a long time, the story was when I was born, like Giva, beautiful, clean. Gava, beautiful, pure. Me, beautiful flower. I was named because when I was born, my mom had a flower pot, a bunch of flowers in the hospital bed, and Laiwa as a transition is beautiful flower. But in reality, it means beautiful, magnificent. And so the reason why I really disliked my name is I didn't feel magnificent. I didn't feel like I was my namesake. And at the same time, it was like the struggle of fitting in. I wasn't Chinese enough. I wasn't American enough. I was too tall. Wow, whole thigh. Whenever they would see my sisters, we would go to parties or my dad would drag us to his friend's house. Oh, you don't even have to understand English or Chinese to know that that is not necessarily a good thing, right? It's more of a marker. You're different. You're not like us. You're not like Giva and Gava. And so that really permeated my space for a long time. And so when I think about that, I think about identity and I think about your home. Like if your home is where your heart is and you don't know where your home is, then where are you? Which is the same thing as identity. Like we struggle, right? Do we fit in and how do we fit in? We're here, but yet we're not here. Some people accept us and some people reject us. And it's so vulnerable. We feel so secure and yet vulnerable. According to Stella, my co-author, my friend, my mentor, my champion, Stella also loves to talk about it, not as a dialectical tension, but identity as a negotiation. And so that's what we're always trying to do is negotiate who we are with the people that we meet. So let's think about this. I need a piece of paper. So this is the time where you're going to get a piece of paper. Let me go up here for a second. You can enjoy the pretty flowers. So on Zoom, if you can do me a favor, if you're watching, shout out to all the Zoomers. Penny, shout out to, I don't need one. Oh, yeah. I could pretend. I have to role model. Oh, I don't need a pen though. I got a pen. Everybody get a piece of paper. This is called activity. Okay, this is an activity. Thank you. Yeah, this is called activity. The last lecture is my activity. Okay, now some of you have done this before, but pretend like you haven't. So to understand the force of identity and why we are always tough on each other, let's do this. Draw 3 boxes. Draw 3 boxes, same size. I figured I might as well be and keep it real and do what I always do best, which is tell people what to do. No, I'm kidding. Do an exercise. Perla, you would love this one. Okay, so 3 boxes. Okay, on the one, make a little squiggly. The other, keep it blank. And in the other one, third one, put a little diamond right here. So if you're on Zoom, a diamond, leave it blank, and then a squiggly, okay? Thank you, Dr. Williamson. Did you finish? Okay. All right, I'm going to read you something. Which box is more like your real self? Which of the 3 seems like a better picture of you with your hopes, fears, weaknesses as you are at this point of time? Which comes closest to representing the way you feel about yourself? Choose. How many of you? Okay, I'll give it a minute. Some people need to process. Okay, everybody chose? Zoomland, I hope you chose. Okay, how many of you say the blank? How many of you say the squiggly? How many of you say the little black diamond in the middle? Just as I suspect. The majority of people choose either the squiggle or the blank. Almost none chose the diamond-shaped dot. In this group, only 3. Even though the one with the diamond is the most centered and solid, it has the most feeling and potential. The blank feels a little empty and meaningless. The one with the squiggle creates an impression of disturbance and incoherence. So you may wonder if this is actually accurate. So let me give you an example. Well, the book author is giving you an example. Here's a thought experiment. Suppose you're with the person you love more than any person on the face of this earth. And suppose you just made these 3 boxes you've been looking at. Now imagine you are asked to give that box to this person that represents your love. Which of the 3 would you give? The diamond. Diamond? Anybody want to tell me why? Exactly. It seems defined. It seems centered. The majority of us feel like the diamond feels more valuable, right? It feels worth giving. It feels more meaningful. But the other 2 boxes is emptiness and incoherence which are in our lives, which is why we think of ourselves as blanks or squiggles instead of diamonds. We know the diamond-shaped dot was what we wanted to select, but in some way, our sense of self made us feel unworthy. So we rationalized why we selected the squiggle or the blank. And that is kind of the same thing in life. Rationalizing why we don't deserve, why we shouldn't get, we're less than. If anything, we are our worst critics. And if anything, we are our worst enemies. We have a proverbial stick, I like to say, that's in our hand, and we're always beating ourselves up. I should have done this. I should have said this. I could have done better. When at the same time, we're all diamonds for crying sakes, correct? But we don't think we deserve it because we're an object, not a subject. And that we're always trying to impress other people or compare our lives to other people or identity to other people to say, I want to be more like blank. According to this, when you see yourself as an object, you believe how others, your parents, teachers, peers, and colleagues describe you, and then you become that. You might want to be an artist. You know, I chose this from my father. You might want to be an artist, but others might tell you, you know what? You have no talent, training, or temperament. So as we move forward with this exercise, think about yourself as a diamond. This morning, I did it with Stella, and she said, I chose the blank because blank is pure. It is not empty and meaningless. It is pure. And I'm going to give the pure box to my loved one, and they can put meaning into that. Perspective, correct? Different ways of looking at material, different ways of looking at meaning. And so how do we challenge ourselves then to kind of like rise above this so-called notion that we're always feeling ourselves as not as worthy? Maybe you haven't, but grant me this, like sometimes we actually do. In the words of George Benson, famous guitarist back in the day, you might not know him, but you do know a woman who actually took his song and sang it in a way that resonates with me, and I hope it resonates with you. R.I.P. Whitney. But I love the notion of learning. Learning to love yourself is the greatest love of all. I am 55 and I'm still struggling, which I think is actually really important because we're all human. Like if you all love yourself, oh my gosh, good for you. Yay, go team. But for people like myself, this constant struggle of just trying to stay afloat, especially post-COVID or this time, has been very, very challenging. But then we have to think of ways in which we can give each other hope and aspiration, correct? The joy and the pain. And so as we travel through this whole notion of sense of space and identity and learning, I thought it would be wonderful to do another mini exercise. And before we started school, my colleague Jillian was like, you know what, Chung, this is the first time that we're all going to do something together. Like we're all experiencing reentry. And I teach intercultural communication and I teach culture shock. And so this reentry into life after we've been shut down and closed off for so long is like returning to a space in a world at which we've never been after a year and a half. And it's profoundly influenced us. So I'd like to do this activity right now with you to kind of juxtapose not only coming back into reality and facing culture shock, but really understanding the humanness of grappling with the struggle. So I'd like for you to think about the year of 2021 right now. And I'd like you to think about what lessons you learned about yourself in this year. And so we're going to do a free write for an hour with that paper and pen in front of you, okay? And you're going to think about what you want to write, and you're going to write thoughts about what you learned about yourself in this year, January to now. It seems like forever, January 2021, correct? However, there's two rules. So grab your pen. Okay. You're going to write with your non-dominant hand. Yeah. gracefully, eloquently, and beautifully. So take that pen, put it in your other hand, and you're going to do two things. Not only are you going to write with your non-dominant hand, you're going to write in the direction from right to left. You're going to be Chinese today. Okay, so you're going to take that pen in your non-dominant hand, and you're going to write from right to left. It's going to look something like this. I am writing this with my non-dominant hand. Exclamation. I feel really inspired. That's me. But now you, for 1 minute, not backwards, write in the direction from right to left about what 2021 has done for you. No thinking, right. Okay, I know, my whistle, I had to. Okay, how did you feel? It's only been 1.5 minutes. You wrote in a non-dominant, some of you are still writing, that's wonderful. Ask yourself 3 questions. How did I feel? What did I experience? And what the heck was that about? Right? How did you feel? Anybody? Challenged. What else? Confused. What else? So you, in 1 minute, were able to transform yourself into a person from another country, coming into this land and experiencing what they would feel with the struggle and the challenge of trying to attempt to either communicate, to write. Congratulations. That's what we call empathy, flexibility, and adaptability. Yes, it was hard, correct? How many of you loved it? Yay, why did you love it?
That reminds me of how I like the fun thing about like kids learning things, like and how hard it is to develop like handwriting and language and your thoughts. It's like took me back to when being people.
Right. When it was like, we're all in this together, not like the Walt Disney movie, but we're all in this together as in, you know, in your class, you're learning your ABCs and you're all struggling with is B comes before C or blah, blah, right? But yet at the same time, it's like, wow, let's just take it simple. When did life get so damn complex? And so you probably could do this for the next month. This reflective exercise is a lot how I feel every day. The balance between feeling really comfortable about being uncomfortable and that struggling in my place, struggling. Did I make sense? Did I offend? Did my joke get turned off the wrong way? But I also understand what my grandmothers went through. I understand what my mother went through. I understand what my sisters, my nephew, my niece, what they go through. But this is what we all go through. So feeling, experiencing, and taking it with us in a non-dominant hand experiences really allows for our identity strength, right? It's like we're not in this alone. Like everybody has some form, especially coming back to reality, I call it, coming back to the reality of school. But it also, and the fun and the uniqueness and the challenge and the excitement, but at the same time, the effort it takes, the fatigue, the Am I strong and resilient enough? Which is why a lot of people give up. Like doing this every day, like for example, 2021 was just so crazy. And if you wrote in your dominant hand the lessons from 2021, you would already have half a page done in a minute. But what do you have? A sentence? And I bet you chose easy words. 2021 was hard, period. So that allows me to think about my grandmothers who couldn't speak English that well and who really tried, who just gave simplistic, easy answers for everything. And so that kind of empathy to me is really important when we're thinking about culture as a prism and a prison. So we think about that, and then I think of the word or the action of silence. If culture really is a prism and a prison, then what does it mean about silence? If this really was my last lecture, and the takeaway that I think is really important for me is the power of silence, is gratitude, is peace, it's solitude, a sense of psychological space. But it's also trauma. It's also muting. It's also the prevention of allowing other people to speak. When we were young and still, as we aged, my father, mother never wanted to talk about stuff from our family history. If you come up from a family who can talk about history, well, then congratulations. But if you're Chinese or you're Asian, more likely you will have people in your family who don't necessarily want to talk about the past, because the past is traumatic, and traumatic is history, and history is shame. I never really understood the power of silence because I had two sisters who were really loud and who also protected me, and I was pretty loud myself. But then I knew the power of silence as trauma. I know it sounds strange, but let me kind of unpack that for you as that juxtaposition of silence as empowering and silence as deadly or difficult. I used to think of myself in high school as this pretty amazing girl, struggling, but amazing. And when I was 17 in a liberal high school, I got into a fight, so-called fight, and I came home crying. And my sister's like, why are you crying? I said, because my friend Susan told me to go back to where I came from. I wasn't crying about that. I cried because when my sister asked me, what did you say to her? Did you tell her to go herself? I said nothing. I used to work at a radio station, KPOO, in San Francisco as a DJ, and I loved it. I met Run DMC, I met LL Cool J, I met Houdini, I met MC Hammer, I even had a meeting with Too Short and Tupac. I like to talk about those days, but at the same time, I resent those days because I recall being so close to one of my champions at work, a DJ, who's like, understanding that I had a really difficult time at 20, going through this, my heart hurts. Come to my house in Hercules, he said, 20, 30 miles away during spring break. I have no car, I'll take you. Okay, no problem. Trusting my colleague, my champion at the radio station, who then took serious liberties with me in ways in which I didn't understand at the time that had severe consequences. Was I raped? No, not by the legal definition. But was I? Oh, yeah, I was. A trusted colleague who drove me 20 miles away from where I lived. And being a person who I thought was really smart and verbal and articulate in a situation in which, what can I do? That silence was overpowering and that silence was deafening, and I never said no. But it was no. But I never said it. So I use that term loosely. But the patterns that we choose for ourselves in silence continue if you don't take care of business. My inability to tell that girl at Galileo High School at 17 to go herself. My inability to tell my coworker at a radio station, get the off of me. But the craziest thing about this, because it could have all gone bad, is when I was 31, I came home crying. I was in Oklahoma and I was doing my dissertation prospectus where you write about your topic. And my professor at the time, who I had for 5 years, looked at my prospectus and we had a conversation. So I came home and I was just ugly crying. I was crying because I was defeated, deflated, and I had no idea where I was going to go. The man I was seeing at the time, my partner, my champion at the time, from Tanzania, was a mathematician and an electrical engineer. Complete opposite of me, the communication person. Okay? Very pragmatic, extremely intelligent. But he said, he looked at me and came home. He goes, "What's going on?" And I was so deflated. I felt like I let down my family, the Chung family, my sisters. I let down everybody. I let down Stella and Bill Goodykins, who were my heroes. We're supposed to stand on the shoulders of scholars and people in front of us, and I felt like I fell down. "Why are you crying?" I said, because I showed my professor my prospectus, and she gave me 3 choices. She said, I could stay here another year. I can try to find another job, then work ABD, all but dissertation, or I can find somebody else. So then why are you crying? What did you say to her? I said nothing. Perfect. Go and tell her, not me. Tell her. I'm crying. I'm mad at him. You, right? You're supposed to support me. You're supposed to understand me. You're supposed to empathize with me. But then I realized, had he not done that, I would have continued to allow people to mute me and not have that kind of verbal power that I needed, even though I recognized that saying what I needed to say in my sassy voice was fine. But the times that were critical, trying to protect whomever, irrelevant. That the power lied in me to express myself in a way that I didn't need to repress myself. So I did. I confronted her. And had he not said that to me, I would have not been here at USD either. Like, my colleagues don't know this, but at the very last hour, right before Thanksgiving, my random ass champion, Dr. John Nussbaum, who knew I was suffering traumatically with my professor at the time, because nobody in their self-respecting dissertation status changes their professor. It's like a divorce. It's like an ugly, messy, psychological, emotional, and physical divorce in a way that I invested 5 years. So he said to me, let me take a look at your prospectus. Give me a couple weeks. And if I think it's worth something, we can work. And if not, I'll let you know. I said, okay, that's cool. And on Christmas Day, he calls me, come over to my house. Not in that way. Come over to my house and take a look at my prospectus, right? And so I did. And he said, you're good. We can do this. And on December 31st, I sent out my application to USD. I know, right? You like that? So I wouldn't have been here had they not chose it. Silence can be defeating, but at the same time, it's empowering. So it's up to us to understand at what times we want to use it for good or for evil, for better or for worse. But it reminds me that we need vocal power. And it reminds me that they can work hand in hand with each other. So, Brad, this is.
yourself. Express yourself. Don't repress yourself. Express yourself. Don't repress yourself. Did I say something true? Oops. Hey, Brittany. I have a point.
Is she not the epitome? No. Too early? Too soon? I think the mantra of express yourself, don't repress yourself is extremely valid, very real, and enlightening. So, how do we rise above this froth? Well, it's a daily challenge. So the last thing I want to talk about, rising above the froth and given a set of constraints, what can we do about it? Many people will ask me, what does it mean to be present? So let me ask you right now. How many of you are actually here? Right. So you're physically here. How many of you are thinking about your midterms or your finals, your papers, what's happening on the weekend, the things that you have to do tomorrow, the exam I got to make, the eating you got to do, the drinking you need, mocktails, the plans that you want to do for Christmas? We have a very difficult time being present, and being present as in being at the moment. Being on your computer, being on your phone as I'm talking is fine, but that's not present. We have a difficulty. There's difficulty in challenging ourselves to stay focused and into the present. And it's something that I always, when I wake up in the morning, challenge myself. How can I be present? How can I be present for the person in front of me, for my students in front of me, to my colleagues in front of me, so that they know that I'm here? Here, but not here. No, here. And so it means kind of accepting it, feeling it, and letting it go. What are you accepting? What are you feeling? What are you letting go? It's a meditation, right? It's distraction. It's things that come into your mind. It's the worry. It's the uncertainty. What's going to happen tomorrow? Those things will happen. They're just going to happen tomorrow. But right now, you accept it, you feel it, and you let it go. I'm going to pay homage right now because I thought about this. How do you teach presence? I got this book a while ago from a champion who is an activist, a feminist, a scholar, a leader in liberal arts. Her name was Dr. Lee Knuffelkamp. And she passed away from a terminal illness, but before she passed away, she gave me this book. And in all honesty, I never read it. I kept it in my office because I liked the cover. The 3 questions. I love Lee. But who do I love more? Myself, no. Who do I love more? I love Mr. Rogers. He taught me everything I want to know about fantasies, about stories, about fun. So I am going to read the story for you and see if you can be present with me. The 3 questions based on a story by Leo Tolstoy. Has anybody ever read this before? Indulge me as my last lecture. If you're on your computer, can you please put it off for a moment? If you're on your phone, text it later. Just give me 5 minutes. Okay. I would do it like kindergarten. I loved it. They would go like this. Should I do that? Okay, I'll read it and then I'll do the picture thing. Okay, yeah. Let's take this cover off and then we'll play. And on Zoom, you can read with me. Okay. All right. Here we go. There once was a boy named Nikolai who sometimes felt uncertain about the right way to act. I want to be a good person, he told his friends, but I don't always know the best way to do that. Nikolai's friends understood and they wanted to help him. If only I can find the answers to my 3 questions, Nikolai continued, then I would always know what to do. Okay, this is going to take too long. When is the best time to do things? Who is the most important one? What is the right thing to do? Nikolai's friends considered his first question. Then Sonia, the heron, spoke. To know the best time to do things, one must plan in advance, she said. Gogol, the monkey, who had been rooting through some leaves to find something good to eat, said, you will know when to do the things if you watch and pay close attention. Then Pushkin, the dog, who was just dozing off, rolled over and said, you can't pay attention to everything yourself. You need a pack to decide and keep watch when to do things. For example, Gogol, a coconut is about to fall on your head. There's no coconut. Nikolai thought for a moment. Then he asked his second question. Who is the most important one? Those who are closest to heaven, said Sonia, circling up into the sky. Those who know how to heal the sick, said Gogol, stroking his bruised noggin. Those who make the rules, growled Pushkin. Nikolai thought some more. Then he asked the third question. What is the right thing to do? Flying, said Sonia. Having fun all the time, laughed Gogol. Fighting, barked Pushkin right away. And the boy thought for a long while. He loved his friends. He knew they were all trying their best to help him, but their answers just didn't seem quite right. Then an idea came to him. I know, he thought, I'll ask Leo the turtle. He's lived a long, long time. Surely he will know the answers that I'm looking for. Nikolai hiked up the high mountains where the turtle lived alone. When Nikolai arrived, he found Leo digging a garden. The turtle was old and digging was hard for him. I have 3 questions, and I came to ask for your help. When is the best time to do things? Who's the more important one? What is the right thing to do? Leo listened carefully, but he only smiled. Then he went on digging. You must be tired, Nikolai said. Let me help you. The turtle gave him a shovel and thanked him. And because it was easier for a young boy to dig than it was for an old turtle, Nikolai kept digging until the rows were finished. But just as he finished, the wind blew wildly and the rain burst from the darkened clouds. As they moved toward the cottage for shelter, Nikolai suddenly heard a cry for help. Help! Running down the path, he found a panda whose leg had been injured by a falling tree. Carefully, Nikolai carried her into Leo's house and made a splint for her leg with a stick of bamboo. The storm raged on, banging at the doors and windows. The panda woke up. Where am I, she said, and where is my child? The boy ran out of the college down the path. The roar of the storm was deafening. Pushing against the howling wind and drenching rain, he ran farther into the forest. There, he found the panda's child, cold and shivering on the ground. Oh, panda. Almost done. Mic drop in a minute. The little panda was wet and scared, but alive. Nikolai carried her inside and made her warm and dry. Then he laid her in her mother's arms. Leo smiled when he saw what the boy had done. The next morning, the sun was warm, birds sang, all was well in the world. The panda's leg was healing nicely, and she thanked Nikolai for saving her and the baby from the storm. At that moment, Sonia, Gogol, Pushkin arrived to make sure everybody was okay. Nikolai felt great peace within himself. He had wonderful friends. He had saved the panda and her child, but he also felt really disappointed. Still, no one found the answers to his 3 questions, so he asked Leo one more time. The old turtle looked at the boy. But your questions have been answered, he said. They have? Yesterday, if you had not stayed to help me dig my garden, you wouldn't have heard the panda's cries for help in the storm. Therefore, the most important time was the time you spent digging the garden. The most important one at the moment was me, and the most important thing to do was to help me with my garden. Later, when you found the injured panda, the most important time was the time you spent mending her leg and saving her child. The most important ones were the panda and her baby. And the most important thing to do was to take care of them and make them safe. Remember then that there's only one important time, and that time is now. The most important one is always the one you are with. And the most important thing to do is good for the one who is standing at your side. For these, my dear boy, are the answers to what is most important in this world. Let's take a moment to do an activity that really is about home and why we're here. You have a last piece of paper in front of you and a pen. If you can help me, and on Zoom, if you have a partner, that would be lovely. If you can find a partner to have this one piece of paper together, I would really appreciate it. Just one piece of paper and a pen. So if that means moving and talking to a stranger, thank you. Okay? It could be 3 of you. This is our last exercise about being present and about everything we talked about today. So you're going to take that piece of paper in front of you, and you're going to take your pen. You're going to share one pen together. Okay? So have your pen, and 2 of you hold the pen. So you need a piece of paper, 1 pen, 2 or 3 of you is fine. And everybody hold the pen together. And on Zoom, I hope you're doing this too with your friends, family, confidants. Now, without talking, and for 1 minute, not talking, draw your dream house together. No talking. Go. Laughing is lovely. Laugh out loud. Okay, okay. Debrief your house together for a moment. What's going on? All right, did we enjoy that? Did we enjoy that? Any comments about our dream home? Okay. What does building a dream house with a random stranger or a friend next to you have anything to do with this talk today? This particular exercise to me is about life. It's about teaching, and it's about what we do. Everything you experienced, struggling with and against, letting go of the control, giving control, laughing, maybe frustration, a little bit, misunderstanding, flexibility. Are you with me? That you could do it? That's part of our journey of being present, of our ability to communicate with silence and the home, which is now and here. This exercise to me, I love doing because it really is about our future. And it really is about how we inspire other people in communication to be the flexible people that you are. And that the journey in life is actually fun. It's a struggle, but it really is about the lens in which we see our world or the perspective that we can take. Like, what do you see? What is this word? Flop? No, it's not flop. It's flip. It's flip. It's flip, no matter how you see it. Because if culture is a prism, then it means being able to open up yourself to new information, to new ideas and new perspectives, and challenging the ones you have. It doesn't mean taking away from, or you have a deficit, it means adding to. So, I love what Jesse Jackson said in 1984 with Keep Hope Alive, but I'd like to end with a favorite kind of mantra song that to me will be earworm for you. This is Teddy Pendergrass back in the day when he was alive, RIP, with Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes.
It's time to teach a new way. They're the ones who are coming up. What you have to say. They're the ones who's coming up, and the world is in their hands. When you teach the children, teach them the very best you can. Because the world won't get no better if we just let it be. Na, 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 na. The world won't get no better. We gotta change it, just you and me.
I know, right? Right? Come on. Come on. A little bit. That was from the 70s, and it still has an empowering, impactful meaning to me. And it gives me hope every day when I wake up, even when I feel really crappy. But I think about my dad, the artist, whose art you saw in my slides. And we were young. This was his mantra. Every day we'd leave the house, we'd see it. Yeah, whatever, Dad. But here I am at 55, and he has since passed. But his lessons to me are still around. And he used to say, as it says, there is no right way to do the wrong thing. Give without remembering. Take without forgetting. Forget your mistakes, but remember what they taught you, which is the juxtaposition of that tension. I love this philosophy. It's a mantra. It's a way in which I conduct my life every day, or I strive to. I'm gonna fuck up, and that's okay. I'll just get back right up and try it again, as you will too. So, I have my title now. Thank you, Capri. Teaching it, preaching it, living it. That's what this was about today. So I thank you for your time. I thank you for your inspirational energy and being here with me to celebrate my last lecture from the Department of Communication Studies. Oh, I was supposed to use the hand mic. Anyway, are we doing Q&A?
Yes.
What do you do with Q&A?
Whatever they want. Thank you so much, Dr. Chung. Before we give a concluding remark, just want to open it up for our last 10 to 15 minutes for a Q&A. So if you have any questions for Dr. Chung in regards to the lecture she just gave or just in general, Peyton, if you could just monitor the chat on Zoom for me and just feel to raise your hand and ask those questions if anything pops up in the chat. But yeah, it's open floor.
Ooh. Any questions? That's a great question. I will. He said, did my detox in his freshman LLC class have a lot to do with being present? You know, I teach, and you got to practice what you teach. I have to role model the same behavior that I'm asking my students to do. And if I teach interpersonal communication, and I know for a fact that our addiction to our technology, good, bad, and ugly, because we bow down and pray to our phone constantly, that we spend more time on our phone than with any other loved one. It tells us what to think, what to do, where to go, what to eat, where to go, why to go, where to park, why not to park, what to wear, what to listen to, and what not to listen to every day. And by the way, it gives you recommendations. You might not want to go on that path. Oh, yes. Okay, Siri. So the answer to your question is, I do a 5-day or a 96-hour retox, which I legally have students give me their phone, and I have my phone in this bag as well, and we go on a journey together with no technology. It's been so amazing, but just like attention has been such a struggle, because I am struggling to be present. I am not struggling to be future, because I know where that leads. It leads to trauma. It leads to fatigue and stress and the inability to accomplish all the things I want to accomplish. Do. That's what we do in America. Do. Because those results give you an impact of, see what I've done, as opposed to, let's just be. Let's just be. So in your class, which was 4 years ago, was probably the last time where, in your class too, Kobe, I want to at least start this legacy of face-to-face connection, of just connection without a third party mediator, which is technology. I did it this time. I did it actually this semester, and I do it every semester. But I do it so that we can at least experience being present. And I appreciate your question, but it's like Pandora's box. It unveils a lot of my anxiety that it goes along with this exercise, and the struggle to show students, like, look at the world around you. Look at the world without your phone. Look at the world just by being present and looking at people in their eyes, or looking at this campus, which is so lovely, or looking at where you're going when you're driving and paying attention to all the things that are around you. I don't know how much longer I can do it, which is why this is the last lecture. But I don't know how much longer I can do this actual retox or detox, because our simple reliance on technology. Nick.
Look at the lesson at the end of the book, the mantra that you touched from your father. How do you deal with like the frustration that comes when others don't reciprocate that in society, or do you feel frustrated?
This one? You know what? That's a really good question. Of course I do. I have students who are so future, and I get that and I accept it, but they misunderstand me and my intention. It's not that I'm a procrastinator. It's not like I'm just being lazy. It's because here and now is so important to me. So much so that a lot of my freshman students, like even this semester, which is a great example, I do like this work organization. Do you remember this? A work preference. What kind of work do you like done? And you become an operator. You could become like, I feel like smooth operator. No, you're an operator. There's like 4 different styles. And clearly, if you are more of a mathematician or engineer, you're more of an operator. You're more systematic. You like repetition. It's everything that I'm not. So the answer to your question is, we were sitting in class, and 2 girls on the same table had like 12 out of 12 on this, like really high scores. And they looked at me and they said, "Yes, Dr. Chung, you're not this, are you?" I said, "Oh, absolutely, I am not. But I thank you for being here, because I know how frustrating it is to work with me in your class as your teacher." And they said, "Yeah, it is." And I said, "However, look on the bright side. For me being here and me being now, and us really emphasizing our mental health, and making sure that we're all like balanced and taking this semester really slow, that the flexibility I gave you in your exams are so that they're not supposed to stress you out. And if I was systematic, we wouldn't have had other options. It would have been set in stone, no change. And she looked at me, they both looked at me and they said, oh my gosh, you're right. 5 years ago, I wouldn't have had that conversation. I just would have blew them off. This is why your question to me is really important, is feeling irritated and feeling frustrated when I give and somebody else doesn't, and I forget about what I gave, but I remember what they gave me and the other person doesn't, or, you know, they do the wrong thing. I have to have grace. I have to tell myself I have to give grace to others who may not be in the same place I am. Because honestly, we're a work in progress. So at one moment, if I'm going to be so entitled that I believe I deserve this, at the next moment, my knees can get chopped down because I will be that person. So I always recognize that whatever I do, I could be the other. I hope that makes sense. Like if I'm the one who's judging somebody, that same situation will get turned on me. And the last thing I want to do is be a hypocrite. So the mantra is the frustrations and the irritations will come. Let them be, and let them go. You can't control anybody else's path. You can't control what other people do, but you can be there for them. And I think that's the most important part. And that's part of being present. It's just being there for the person, being there for the situation, and not on your personal agenda, but on theirs.
Is there anything that you wish to go back or stuff at your life would you change, like anything in your life would be over now at 55 or that?
Of course. And one of the things I learned is, and I've told you this too, is fear, regret more than failure. But I can say I failed a lot. Would I change anything, especially given what I talked about today, which is actually really painful and very traumatic for me? But you know what? I wouldn't change it, because through the struggles and through these failures, my life is not measured by my successes. It's really measured how I overcome all those obstacles. And that gives me amazing stories to talk about and to learn from and to advocate. Because at the end of the day, Capri, it's really about advocacy, right? It really is about how I can help and understand and appreciate people whose lives are different from myself. Like, how can I be there on their terms, not mine? And so I love that question, but at the same time, I'm like, no, I'm me because of my battle scars, and they're hidden. Oh, but they're there, ready, ablazing, right? But that's what makes me who I am. And that's what makes my skin so thin and so thick and so battered, but yet whole.
Thank you for sharing your story, first of all. But I did have a question also about being present personally for you. How do you think, or do you think you being present has changed or evolved, improved, good or bad, pre-COVID, during COVID? Like, has your sense of being present changed?
It's gotten stronger. I used to say, I'm going to find my center, I'm going to find Buddha, I'm going to kick ass. Now, pre-COVID, you know, I had lost my partner, my ex, in his sleep at 48, and it was sudden. First day of class in 2019 or spring of 20, yeah. And the following year, I lost my father. But those two experiences taught me about being present, like being there when people need you the most, which meant going home with my family, seeing my father, and appreciating it, because Gao left without me even saying anything to him. I don't regret that. I feel sad, but it makes me aware that the only time that we have is now, and that you never know when you're going to go. you know, my rock star colleague retired. And I thought as soon as he retired, that was it for me. But I got to keep on advocating and I got to keep on because I still have passion. So the pre-COVID and COVID really did teach me that this is really important and that honestly, you can't control, that you're going to have to start to relinquish the kind of control and the anxiety and the uncertainty that you feel because we're not going to have all these answers. And so you wasting, not you, but you, us, yeah, not you personally, waste time waster, like, you know, us worrying about, my dad used to say, don't worry about things you can't control. And it's true. Like, why are we worrying about that? Because you're incessantly worrying about something that's filling your brain when you can actually be doing something really healthy and helpful. So COVID gave me a moment because COVID was actually beautiful, silence, but devastating if you were poor or devastating because of your situation. Like I talk about a home. And the funniest thing is I never had a home. We had apartments, like we had project housing for crying out sakes with bars. So for me to sit here and say, look, here's your home and here's your, is really funny. But at the same time, it's where we are. And where we are is right now. So it's kind of evolved and changed, but it made it so much more omnipresent, meaning it made it so much more important to be. Which I guess goes back to Nick's point, which I really have to maintain my frustration and judgment or judgy feelings I get when people are not present. Like, that's okay, on their own time and space. Wow, okay. Hey.
Hey, how do you know like when you need to prioritize yourself so that you can be well?
If you're asking that, it means you need to. No, that's, am I right? Like, right. And that's a great question. And the thing is like, there's a difference now. See, one of the reasons why I kind of don't like learning to love yourself is the greatest love of all, because George Benson wrote actually prior to those lyrics is, I decided long ago not to walk in anybody's shadow. If I fail, if I succeed, at least I'll live as I believe, right? And it's like, no, we're a we. We're a collaboration of people. Like you are who you are because of everything built around you. But you need to carve out that space for you because you are no good to anybody if you're not feeling it for yourself, for your mental health, and for your emotion. And so that's my mantra for you is you are no good for anybody if you can't take care of yourself. So by you saying that means you need to take time for you so that you can do the things that you need to do and go kick ass. Am I right?
Yeah.
So do it. Like have a priority in your life of the 3 things that you want to do for your own challenges moving ahead. Does this mean taking a walk? Does it mean meditating? Does it mean taking the earbuds off? Does it mean getting off technology? Whatever it is that you believe is important, you do.
I was thinking back, besides the present thing, but more of like how we see ourselves with the squares. You kind of point out that like most people kind of look at the perfect square like so called and like think they're lesser than, that's kind of the consensus between people. I was wondering if you thought, would we not rag on ourselves if we didn't grow up or exist in a culture that puts people down? Like, do you think that's inherently human, or do you think that's a societal, impact?
That is a great question, because every cultural group has their way of framing how they want to raise their children. So for example, if you're Chinese, the way you raise your children is you tell them everything is not good enough. You're not good enough, smart enough. You need to excel. The A minus you got needs to be an A. And they're not doing it to berate you. They're doing it because of meansy or face, to give face to the honor of the 3 generations. Whereas in the United States, it's more of face for yourself. So the point is, I believe that social media has made a huge impact on how we view ourselves, because that particular exercise that you did with the boxes is about the I and the me, the who we instinctively are versus what society creates for us or the expectations society has for us. So you are who you are. What is your name? Christiane. You are who you are according to George Herbert Mead, based on the feedback that you got from other people, based on what they've told you, that you've recognized it, that you embraced it, and you've adopted it, and you've done it. I mean, you're not super smart and awesome because you woke up and saying, I'm super smart and awesome. People have told you this and you recognized it and you adopted it. But at the same time, there is a dissonance in your head, right? Well, they're saying this about me, but I don't feel it. I don't believe it. I don't recognize it. And there's so many multiple like psychological layers to determine why we do this. But I think inherently, is it a human factor to feel that we're less than? In my opinion, yeah, I do. Because we have this notion of a mirror that we're always looking, and that mirror is skewed. Because what you see and what is reflected back at you are two different animals. My example is I have age dysmorphia. I just coined that term. Like I'm 55 and I'm really excited, but when I see how I'm supposed to look and act, there's a disconnect. Does that make sense? And that's hard for me. I hope that kind of answers your question.
Two questions from the chat. The first one is, what is one of the best lessons you've learned at USD? And the second one is, what do you think the next chapter will be in your life?
I bet you that's from a former student. Okay. The first one is really easy. And the first one came in 1999 with my colleague right here, Dr. Houston. I came to her office crying because I said, I wanted out. I wanted to leave because I was misunderstood. I did crazy stuff in my classroom that was really inherently misunderstood. I talked about, I talked about things that are not necessarily things you're supposed to talk about. I did things in a public speaking class where everybody had their speech already, Rachel, you have your speech already. And then I collected it in a bag and I toss it up in the air. And then I'm like, okay, come over here and pick one piece of paper up. And you are so excited because you researched your topic. And then you get this random one called teaching. That's your subject. And they were so upset. Why are you giving me this random topic I picked up from a floor that I didn't even have any control over? So I went into her office because the dean had complained. Students went in complaining about me. And I said to her, I want to go. And she's like, you need to just think about this. So I went home and I talked to my mother, and my mother said this, all right, go, leave. But you keep bitching and you keep moaning about what these other students are so-called not giving you. They're not listening, blah, blah, blah. And she said, what have you done? What have you done to meet them halfway? Before the Black Eyed Peas. I said, wow, I didn't meet them halfway. Shit. And that was a huge epiphany. And that's the biggest lesson I learned, that I have amazing colleagues that supported me and the style in which I taught. But number two, that I needed to change my shit up. Like if I was really going to do what I say I'm going to do, which is teach about how to be effective across cultures, then damn straight, I better do something about this. The second thing is so many other things I want to do. Like TBD, can't tell you. Those are my secrets. Those are my secrets. But it's going to have to do with the aging society. And it's going to have to do with funeral party planning, which I totally think is awesome. I'm going to plan the funeral for your pet. Anyway, no, I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to sound, I just meant. Okay. Next question. I'm going to get in trouble. Any others? Yeah.
The struggle to love yourself that like everyone faces, and you say like you face it now, and you're not like the first person to tell me that. Like people of all ages do, but do you think anyone ever accomplishes it?
You know what the beauty of that question is, that it's not a bad thing, right? I mean, I'm not 21 anymore, and at 21, I was a badass girl, and I loved myself, but I didn't like myself. You see, I think this evolution or this transformation of what we're doing in our life is part of what we are. So today is about that transformational piece of juxtaposing, like these complementary forces that we have. Loving ourselves sometimes, and yet at the same time, not feeling good about ourselves, right? And so it is a lifelong challenge, but it's a fun one, just like our mental health. It's a good one because it recognizes that there's still so much more to learn, that there's still so much more to do, and there's still so much more to become. So don't tell me that I've learned it, I've done it, I lived it, I know who I am, because at that point, I might as well just go into a retirement gated community and just leave myself there. Like there's still more work to be done, is my point. And that is about love, right? And that's where you find, I think, inner peace is, the mantra of Buddhism with through pain and suffering, you find enlightenment, you find compassion and wisdom. But that's the life. Thank you. Any others? Going once, twice. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all for your questions. So many great ones. I'm going to now pass it to Capri, who's going to give a concluding remark.
There you go. Thank you, Dr. Chung, for offering such an enlightening and entertaining speech this evening. We truly appreciated your presence, charisma, and insightful thoughts. Your last lecture was extremely impactful for the students and faculty gathered here today, as you truly embrace the essence of giving a lecture as if it were your last. We appreciate the time and effort you put to grace our last lecture series 2021 and make it such a big success. We cannot thank you enough. So on behalf of all of Mortarboard, we would like to present you with a small gift as a token of our gratitude.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, okay. Thank you. Thank you for all, are you still, is this, it's sorry. I'm being present, you see.
Thank you everyone for joining us today to listen to Dr. Chung present her last lecture. Please make sure to grab some extra snacks on the way out. And Dr. Chung, if you could stay for a photo.
I will.
Really big round of applause to Dr. Chung.